You know things are bad for Donald Trump when he can't even keep his most loyal MAGA Republicans in Congress in order. And that is what we have seen over the past couple of days. As Donald Trump's trade war gets stupider and stupider and the economy gets worse and worse, MAGA Republicans are flipping on Donald Trump and stabbing him in the back and doing it very publicly, which is what we just saw from a top Republican who Donald Trump is going to be pretty upset with and clearly is with the post he just made. And we are going to get into all of that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into this MAGA Republican stabbing Donald Trump in the back, I first want to hear from one who gave the just most ridiculous and hypocritical defense that he got caught in a clip right here.
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. You're gonna, like, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing. In fact, it builds quite a bit of character. In fact, you learn a lot of lessons, actually, by losing money.
It's bloody Black Monday. Holy moly. The Kamala crash is here. Kamala needs to get in front of a camera today. People are losing their homes today. People are losing their fortunes today. People are losing their futures today. People are losing their 401ks today. This is shaping up to be one of the worst market days in American history.
This attempted defense from the MAGA media has just been so sad, but expected to watch. Your money doesn't mean anything. Losing it costs you nothing. Is that what you were talking about when Joe Biden saw egg prices go up a little bit because of post-pandemic inflation caused by Donald Trump? Is that what you were saying? Your money costs you nothing? No, obviously. It's just so disingenuous, but it's part of the broader argument trying to be made to protect Donald Trump from the pressure of the impact of his tariff agenda. And we see some of that with J.D. Vance right here, too.
Worried. So we are fighting very hard to bring prices down. We're going to have the biggest deregulation in the history of this country. We're doing a lot of things and already have done a lot of things to lower the cost of energy. You heard the president mention this yesterday. Eggs, when we came in, were at a 10-year high, and all of a sudden they've dropped 60% just in the 2 months of the Trump administration. What I'd ask folks to appreciate here is that we are not going to fix things overnight. Yeah. Joe Biden left us, this is not an exaggeration, Lawrence, with the largest peacetime debt and deficit in the history of the United States of America, with sky-high interest rates. You don't fix that stuff overnight. We know people are struggling. We're fighting as quickly as we can to fix what was left to us, but it's not going to happen immediately.
So I wanted to play that clip because it's very important context for the call out that the Republican we are going to check out in just a second gave. J.D. Vance is trying to present this image of a disastrous economy, this complete failure, this dumpster fire that him and Donald Trump took over, but it's just not the case. The economy is crashing right now because it was stable and, in fact, rising to historic levels under Joe Biden. That's why we call it a crash, JD. It's not a continuation. This isn't a trend. You have bucked it. The Biden-Harris administration was about success, and you're about, I guess, I don't know, screwing everyone's retirement account. And Donald Trump is trying to present the same idea as well. So before we get into that, Republican, let's hear this line of BS.
And as you know, because of the tariffs, we have $7 trillion already committed to be invested in the United States, building auto plants, building chip companies, and all sorts of companies are coming into our country at levels that we've never seen before. Biden had nothing coming in. This was a dead country with Biden. He didn't know what he was doing, and that's now been proven at least.
This is really the center of the argument around tariffs for Donald Trump, is that it's all about manufacturing, bringing back the jobs, something that Joe Biden actually was doing. And appropriations in previous budgets and Joe Biden's agenda, the Inflation Reduction Act, these investments in America through the CHIPS Act. Yeah, Joe Biden was creating manufacturing jobs that left during the Trump presidency. And now Donald Trump is attacking those very bills, those very laws that help jobs grow while just screwing us all over. It is not about manufacturing. And that is why people are so furious, including MAGA Republicans, like we see right here.
It's been painful, but it may turn out well. It may not. If it doesn't turn out well, I think the president will recalibrate.
To that point, do you think it's Donald Trump's economy now?
Oh, I think it is. There's no question. I think once he decided to add the tariffs, clearly, I mean, he will be held responsible, as he should, whether it turns out good or it turns out badly.
Is there a point at which you would consider supporting taking tariff authority back into congressional hands? There have been some efforts in the Senate to do that.
Well, if I finally concluded that what the president is proposing is not going to work, or if the treatment is worse than the disease, sure. And I'm going to look at Senator Grassley's bill very closely.
That right there is the nail in the coffin. This is his economy. We saw Carolyn Levitt just a week ago say, well, it's not the Biden, it's still the Biden economy. It's not the Trump economy yet. Even though in the beginning of Donald Trump's administration, before he was even sworn in, he said he wanted to start being president early because he saw such great response and success to him being elected. It's not the case anymore. But this is Donald Trump's responsibility. He should be held accountable for it. Clearly, he doesn't want to be. That's why he's melting down in this post. Trump wrote, "The United States has a chance to do something that should have been done decades ago. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. Don't be a panicking. A new party based on weak and stupid people. Be strong, courageous, and patient, and greatness will be the result." So you're weak if you don't want Trump to destroy the economy? Well, then I guess I'm a panicking. Is that the word? I don't know. He's a moron. And that's why everyone's turning against him. It's not just MAGA Republicans. It's also the business leaders who, for some stupid reason, backed him and got us all into this mess and are now really regretting it. And Ari Melber went into some very delicious detail on that right here.
Elon Musk losing many billions right now, and he's publicly opposing Trump's tariffs, saying Europe and the U.S. should actually move in the opposite direction, ideally to, quote, a zero tariff situation, a free trade zone between Europe and North America. He adds, that has certainly been my advice to the president. Or take a very vocal MAGA Wall Street titan, Bill Ackman. You may recognize him a bit or know his name. When you look at those Wall Street hedge fund and big sort of masters of the universe, to use the old novelistic phrase, he's been really atop them in the recent era, last year or two, as the MAGA guy. And he recently specifically endorsed Trump's economic plans after the election.
We're stepping into, I would say, the most pro-growth, pro-American administration I've perhaps seen in my adult lifetime, certainly. I would say everyone is incredibly enthusiastic, really about a new administration that's about efficiency, removing the impediments to growth, deregulation. President Trump will do nothing that interferes with the success of the country, the success of the economy.
Quite the embrace. Now Ackman says Trump is making the ultimate blunder for the success of the country and the economy, self-inducing what he calls the economic equivalent of a nuke, blaming Trump for a, quote, self-induced economic nuclear winter. Trump policies destroying confidence in our country as a trading partner, as a place to do business. Now, that billionaire's analogy might sound a bit extreme, equating these costs with the death toll of nuclear war, but his point is that Trump's policy here is so obviously bad on the evidence, on what we know about economics and the foreseeable results of the $6 trillion we just lost, that it's so extreme and dangerous it could hurt hundreds of millions of people for years, not a month or two, for years. Now, economists agree on that point if Trump is stubborn and ignores the reality and costs and presses on with this. Some of it, even if he presses on and then tries to dial it back, will not be easily reversed. Again, Ackman saying this will, the nuclear winter, as he calls it, take potentially years or decades to rehabilitate, potentially decades to rehabilitate. That's a lot of economic pain. Most of it hits working people the hardest. They have the leanest savings or no savings or live on debt, so they can't just afford a recession and live on like normal. And I want to show you tonight, right now, I mentioned we're going to go through the multiple lanes, and I'm going to get to those national protests, which are significant and are a different metric for what we're seeing across all the measurable ways Americans are perceiving this. But before I go any further, I just want to point out this nuclear winter concern is a long ways from Mr. Ackman's Trump guarantee that I showed you that was just 116 days ago.
President Trump will do nothing that interferes with the success of the country, the success of the economy.
It's a long ways from saying Trump will do nothing that interferes with the success of the American economy to what Mr. Ackman now updates as, his words, the risk of a nuclear winter. Now, that's just from Trump's boosters, and many thought they'd be getting richer, or at least do no harm, a, quote, pro-business administration. But like so many other people who listen to Trump's words without really understanding what's happening, even the very smart and the very rich, they now have buyer's remorse. So we have this broad, stark rejection of Trumpism from his own allies, from the Wall Street bankers, and from the CEOs who are actually living through the first waves of this, which may not be the last. Then, as I mentioned to you, there are the millions of Americans who didn't choose this to begin with, who didn't believe everything Trump said or think that someone who promises you a better economy, along with the other things we know about him, was going to give you a better economy. There are people living with the consequences regardless of how they voted, and many people don't vote but are living through this. And while the market reaction is confined to economics, Wall Street has a one-track mind, and under law, business leaders have a legal duty, by the way, to put money above everything else in how they invest or run a company. So investors and hedge funds they're dropping out of American stocks because of what Trump is doing, undercutting the value of those stocks. Then the broader Trump rejection is by these other huge, massive groups of people. This weekend's protests saw what that looks like. People, even amongst all this tumult and all the other issues going on and their own lives and obligations and jobs, taking time for massive gatherings like you see here in Boston, huge crowds in New York, showing an energy that could be tapped for any number of political movements. Doesn't need to be partisan, doesn't need to be democratic, by the way. It might just be a people's movement against some of these excesses that apparently now the protesters and the bankers agree on. This rebuts some of the Washington talk we've heard about a resistance that is over or tired. And while some could dismiss even these large crowds as confined to liberal or East Coast areas, the protests, we can report, hit every state. Here are some of the enormous crowds we saw in Colorado and in cities all over the country, Minneapolis, Oklahoma, Davenport, South Dakota, with many pretty informed people this weekend speaking out.
Everyone, and I mean everyone, is turning against Trump. And obviously, he is screwing us all over. We are going to see more of this, and it's only going to get worse because he will continue to dig in. So hopefully, what this leads to is Republicans in Congress allowing Democrats to be the adults in the room, take back this powered tariff, and maybe settle our economy a bit. But what that won't take away from is the damage that has been done to Donald Trump's presidency, what we need to hammer home every single day. And we're going to do that on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.